He is known as a rebel without a cause, or an angry young man. He's angry, but he doesn't know why he's angry, and that makes him even angrier. His version of highest truth is found in modern cinema and in modern music. He views women as sex objects. For that matter, he views himself as a sex object. He regards himself as an ornament for all to enjoy. Nearly every rock star today falls into this category, as do many actors. And these are the places that boys look for heroes: music and cinema. The wimp is ashamed or afraid of being male. He may have a cause, but the biggest rebellion he has is in his own heart. He often finds himself as part of groups because he has no leadership ability, nor does he have any interest in leading. He claims superiority because he's in the majority. These types seem to congregate at colleges and universities, at Occupy Wall Street rallies, and as abortion clinic escorts. There may be a nuance here or there, but these are the basic options offered by our culture to young men. As a society, we have forgotten how to be men. Now, as always, we must turn to Jesus, the perfect role model. And that is what I want to talk about today. Specifically, I want to talk about 4 types of strength that Jesus exhibited on earth. The first is moral strength. Moral strength means faithfulness in the presence of temptation. When we are tempted to sin, we must remember that Jesus himself was tempted. For example, in the 4th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, we read that after his 40 days of fasting, the devil tempted Jesus 3 times. And as you read the account, it's fascinating that each temptation that Jesus overcomes increasingly frustrates and seems to weaken the devil. And his victory over temptation couldn't really be more dramatic. Jesus ends the conversation with the devil in very certain terms, commanding him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." And in Matthew 4:11, we read these words that comfort us after we overcome temptation. Then the devil left him, and the angels came and attended him. Why did Jesus allow himself to be tempted? After all, God could have restrained the devil. St. Augustine taught that one of the reasons that Jesus allowed himself to be tempted was that he wished to give an example of how to overcome temptations. And that was mainly by prayer and fasting. Jesus also wished to show us that it is not only the obstinate sinner who is tempted, but also the holy man. In fact, St. Hilary wrote that the temptations of the devil assault those principally who are sanctified, for he desires above all to overcome the holy. St. Ambrose wrote that the devil attempted a 3-fold temptation towards Jesus: lust of the flesh, hope of glory, and eagerness for power. It's interesting to me that the devil has not changed his ways. Isn't that how he still tempts us men? That's at least how he tempts me. Before I sold my investment practice, I was tempted to want clients to call me, to tell me how great a job I was doing. Of course, any intellectual power I had was a direct gift of God. But I wanted the thanks for myself. That's hope of glory. I was also tempted to sit on the boards of corporations and make big, important decisions. I wanted to manage money of famous, important people. That's eagerness for power. Lust of the flesh. Look, if you're a man today and you don't get temptations of the flesh, you should immediately drop down on your knees and thank God, because yours is a rare case. There's an old joke that a few priests in their 70s were sitting on a park bench, talking to each other, and lamenting the fact that they were still tempted by lustful thoughts. So they decided to go to a 90-year-old priest who was renowned for his holiness. And they asked him, "Father, when did the temptations of the flesh finally stop?" The old priest paused for a moment and then answered, "I am told the thoughts stop about 1 hour after your death." Life offers few constants, but it certainly offers this one. You will be tempted to sin for the rest of your life, and very likely at the end of your life. But we've been given prayers against temptation. The Our Father explicitly asks God to lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Pope Benedict writes that when we say this prayer, we are humbly expressing to God that we are weak souls, and that we do not want to be tempted beyond our wills, and for God to stay close to us when we're tempted. One of the elements of moral strength is a recognition of our own weakness, and our need to turn to God in terms of temptation. The Hail Mary prayer also recognizes that the devil may try to tempt us most when we are vulnerable, which is why we pray for the powerful intercession of Mary, now and at the hour of our death. We men need to recognize and explain to our children that temptation isn't sin. The fact that someone wants to do battle with us doesn't mean we lost the war, but it does mean that we have to fight. When we're tempted, let's follow Jesus' example and use these temptations as an opportunity to show him how much we love him. Remember that the object of moral strength, the focal point of moral strength, is love. We fathers need moral strength to direct that love toward God through our wives and children. Along with moral strength, the next type of Christ-like strength that we need to have is intellectual strength. The fact that Jesus is all-knowing is a tenet of the Catholic faith. But what we need to recognize as Catholic men is that intellectual strength was vital to his mission, and it is also vital to ours. First of all, Jesus is a teacher. And even at the age of 12, Jesus was exhibiting intellectual strength. The Gospel of Luke tells us, "Now so it was that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers." Those who listened to Jesus became the first Christians. But many didn't and would not listen to Jesus. Jesus was constantly assailed by those who tried to intellectually trip him up. The Pharisees asked Jesus questions, not because they wanted to know the answers, but because they wanted to make him look uneducated. Jesus read their hearts and knew they didn't care about the true answers. They didn't care about truth at all. They simply tried to trick him, but it didn't work. In Matthew 28:19, Jesus commanded the apostles and us to go teach all nations. Implicit in this command is that we have to know our faith. We have to know the truth. Because we have a lot of intellectual enemies to fight against. Modern culture gives more homage to atheists than to Christians, both on a professional, intellectual level, as well as on a cultural level. For instance, Richard Dawkins, atheist and author of a book called The God Delusion, is perhaps the most celebrated scientist today. And though he lived long ago, and almost all of his theories have been disproven, Karl Marx is the main economist taught in universities. Let me repeat that. Karl Marx, atheist, and by the way, a horrible economist, I guess I could say that because I have a degree in economics, is the main economist taught in universities globally. America is a strange place. We send students into an intellectual meat grinder, graduate them with a degree in Marxism, call it economics, and then wonder why you're in debt as a country. On a cultural front, popular music has been rotten with atheism for a while now. For instance, in the 1970s, former Beatles member John Lennon wrote the song Imagine. Who's heard of it? Pretty much we all have. Ever since then, the song has developed a cult-like following. The song begins, and I even hate to say this with this backdrop. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Since its writing, Imagine has served as an atheist profession of faith. It's often cited as the most popular song ever recorded.